Hello, and welcome to the Old Soul Archaeology Podcast. My name is Michelle Janae. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Are you ready to dig deep? Like other starseeds, Christina Cowherd looks at life differently. As a survivor of a violently abusive childhood, she called on her healing abilities early in life to find inner peace and the strength to follow her calling as a guide for others. That calling set her on an unexpected path of building business expertise in a variety of industries, while engaging in deep study of the transformative capacity of the light body and for transmuting trauma into wholeness. The journey to heal her own trauma, then later to find grace as a mother to two special needs daughters, offers Christina a compassionate lens for working with others. Her business and coaching experience give her a real-world perspective into the challenges and stresses of everyday living. Christina coaches and teaches clients how to heal themselves and others. As a healer, Christina specializes in transmuting energy, vibration, and frequency, enabling her clients to feel as though a significant weight has been lifted, enjoying a new sense of belonging and purpose. If you are feeling disconnected, living in fear, constantly being rejected and misunderstood, Christina knows how to help you understand, heal, and harness your power and purpose to live an unlimited, conscious, fulfilling, and divinely inspired life. Christina Cowherd, welcome to Old Soul Sojourn with Old Soul Archaeology. It's so good to have you here.
Well, it's actually my honor to be here. I'm so glad to share this space and this time with you, Michelle.
Awesome, thank you. So we're just going to dive right in.
Yeah,
now that we've kind of given the intro as to what the conversation is about today, let's just go to the big question. What is a starseed?
Well, actually, right, it is a big question because it's cosmic. So to put it in simplistic terms, it is somebody who is occupying, right, the human vessel that is their origin is from another place. Their origin is not from Earth. And so they come here in this time and this space, and many times before, it's usually not their first time, but there are some new souls that are just popping in. But really, in short, a starseed is somebody that has heritage beyond Gaia, beyond Earth.
Mm. Wow. And how does one know they're a starseed? I think you had mentioned in your bio that you've always known somehow you were a starseed. How did you come to terms with that knowing when it's not something that is so widely taught or accepted?
My journey, there was a little lag there. So the actually determining that I was, quote, the label of a starseed probably happened approximately 5 years ago. And when that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, that just like makes total sense. Ding, ding, ding. All these things started going off in my head, and all these memories started, aligning up. I mean, I always knew I was a light worker. That I knew from age 5 or 4 or 3. I don't know how young I was. I know 5 for sure. But as far as the label of starseed, that was probably only about 5 years ago. But then once I determined that category label of being a starseed, I understood why some of the languages, my always knowing, having memories of Lemuria, having memories of Atlantis, having memories of missions, starships, all kinds of things that just had always been with me, and knew that it came from the light worker aspect, but not specifically the starseed.
Okay, so what's the difference between a light worker and a starseed?
So, as you know, there's lots of different definitions for multiple things, but from my perspective, the difference between a starseed and a light worker is that their position that they came from was when before they popped in, right, and came into the veil, they literally were in another star system, and they volunteered for this mission, which is to come to Earth and to help consciousness, help shift, and help with the ascension. Light workers themselves can actually be humans and not of other origins. So most all light workers are starseeds, but you don't have to be a starseed to be a light worker.
Okay, my mind just blew up. This is new information for me and probably for a lot of the audience. So
it is very new. I think that, you know, the Starseed community is starting to blow up now because there's more and more consciousness, and people are awakening to that aspect of being a Starseed. And although you could probably find some books that go way back, but there wasn't that activation that happened. So there's been certain individuals, and that's how actually I was found out that I was a Starseed. Was I went to a seminar, and it was really quite interesting actually, because the person who is a co-host or the co-teacher on that particular workshop was a old co-worker of mine, like 20 years prior in the mortgage industry. And it's like, who knew?
Wow.
So and yeah, what he does is he's a Starseed activator. He activates people of their knowledge of what the mission was that they chose to come here for.
Wow. I mean,
so there's light workers that aren't activated yet.
Okay. It sounds pretty exciting because I think, especially as we're going through this time of a shift, people are asking more questions. And even if they're not asking questions, they're thinking about those questions, or they're intuiting those questions. They're feeling those questions viscerally. And I like to think of it as the elephant in the room, right? There's all of these topics that are so taboo, which in the green room, we were talking about the decay of language. Taboo means sacred, but in our modern vernacular, taboo means forbidden. And so this elephant in the room is not only something that is by and large not discussed in the ordinary workplace. I mean, who knows if your former coworker would have just messaged you out of the blue and said, "Hey, I'm doing this seminar," or maybe that's what happened. But we're also talking about the parable of the Indian men and the elephant, or any group of people and the elephant. If they're blind and they go in to see this elephant and all they feel is the tail, they have simply one interpretation of it. And unfortunately, with a lot of these philosophical or religious or societal ideas, I mean, take your pick, we can categorize it any way we want, but with a lot of these ideas, they are simply the trunk or simply the tail. And it's really hard for people to kind of branch out when they haven't had the experience. So when you were activated or discovered you were a starseed, how did that make you feel initially? I mean, you said there was some recognition, but how did you bring that to maybe how did you bring that into alignment with your former, up to that point, earthly existence?
Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to share with you my story, but what I can also share with you is, for some people, it can be very life shattering in a non-positive way. For me, it was the opposite. It was like, I always knew, because I've always been different. I've always been on the fringe, always been that weird aunt. And there was things that I knew that I had not yet discovered. So for me, it was like taking off the blindfolds and absolute celebration and opening up my eyes, so like when you have somebody has cataract surgery, and all of a sudden now they can see clearly, right? They know, and they can see, and they can feel. So for me personally, that was an immense celebration. as far as integration with my life, it accelerated to where I stand today. And is that knowing that I had a higher calling, which I knew from age 5. I always knew I had a higher calling. And so now having the manual, having a place, a path to follow was so encouraging. Around the similar time, I also got the same message that it was safe. It was safe to come out of the closet and that they couldn't hurt me anymore. So that was a huge thing to be able to embody that. I started speaking differently in my work. I started communicating differently with my clients. I started bringing in words like divine timing and changing how I presented materials and shared with clients how to intuit, how to hone their gut and their feeling and their tightness in their body. And so for me, it was a huge, huge gift to expand my light, to have permission, permission to pass go, $200 a pass go. So for me, it was wonderful, but I know that for not for everybody. Some people, it sends them in a downward spiral and to that dark night of the soul.
Right. Which in many ways we can say is actually a process for healing if someone embraces it. But I know that for a lot of people, these ideas are enough to, if they even think for a minute that it's a possibility, it just absolutely crumbles out their foundation and they find they have nothing to stand on. So I have seen people around that even while I start to speak of these things and or explore or question or, and I think that's the idea, is to provoke more questions. But I've seen people just absolutely, they stop sign, do not pass go with me.
Yes.
And
right?
There's still a lot of fear around that. And, and I think that fear is fair, especially if they don't feel like they have the tools to deal with it, the community. And in some communities, there's more acceptance than others. What would be the precaution for those people? I mean, is there a precaution for a starseed who doesn't know they're a starseed going into this? Because I'm not even sure there's really any way to know until you know.
It comes to you in many fashions. Sometimes it's an activation. It's very frequently a traumatic event, an accident, a death, a loss of a job, a divorce, something that basically takes a part of your foundation and shifts it. And in that process, we now, for a moment, from our spiritual side, our higher self has that ability to kind of step in and say, let's take a pause here and let's take a different perspective. So, we all have our different strengths and our gifts, and some of us, know, some of us see, some of us hear, some of us feel, and our higher selves, our spirit creator communicates in one of those ways, usually the strongest. And so the starseed starts to hear, listen, feel. They start to lean into the messages that are coming to them. And that then starts the journey.
Yeah, I suppose it's like with anything, right? Any kind of new information could spiral someone up or down, right? So I don't think it's exclusive necessarily to finding out that you're a starseed, which I think is important to note, because sometimes we can tend to think that this topic, because it's considered woo-woo by, mainstream consensus. I won't even say society, I'll just say consensus. And so it's interesting because I've watched as people will justify certain things depending on whether it's societally accepted or consensual versus, stuff that is fringe. And there is almost a double standard, and it's completely invisible to them. But I've stood back and watched the patterns where people will act in a certain way towards information that is new, but it's new in a way that is media driven, or it's, oh, well, since MSNBC said it, nah, I kind of gotta, but if it comes from somewhere that they're not particularly attuned to or normally would listen to, there's a hesitancy. So, you can call it cognitive bias is
Yes.
part of the problem. But it is interesting to see how that plays out among a range of topics, and not just talking about being a light worker or being a starseed. So I want to talk about this. We are obviously going through a huge transition period. And I mean, in some ways I hesitate to say that, because I think that we've always been in a transition period. And I was on the topic the other day of creation and Big Bang, and in a podcast, we didn't quite get to address it with one of my guests, but it's about the Big Bang not having been a once and done event, but it's ongoing. We're still in the midst of it. It's still happening in this very real sense that energy is always changing and moving. And I think that even though 2020 and 2021, because of the rate of change, just seems so much more magnanimous, still something to pay attention to. And still we're seeing that every epoch has its time of change. So as we talk about this change, or maybe it's just a more obvious change, it's coming to light. Light workers are coming forward. Starseeds are becoming activated and aware of their gifts. What does it mean to be safe to come out now? I mean, if we're looking at mainstream media and social media and all of these things, it actually feels a lot more unsafe than ever.
So I think that's actually a really great subject topic to bring to light, because we have. So let's talk AC/DC. Let's talk a little bit on the spiritual side, and then let's talk a little bit on the three-dimensional, right? Unaware of their spirituality side, right? Because there's kind of a two side, and there's a lot of divide that's going on right now with the media, right? Mm-hmm. And with mm-hmm. the awakening of the light workers and the starseeds. And really the beauty of all of this is that the time's coming for unity. It just is maybe not obvious because of the who's in control of the let's call it the exterior airwaves, right? Mm-hmm. So the media compared to the internal airwaves, which is connected to spirit and creator. So from the media side, right, and the three-dimensional side, it's scarier than ever, because mm-hmm. people are talking about being locked down. They're talking about having things put into their body that could potentially put them in a worse state than what they currently are. There's just a lot of stories of control and fear. So from that perspective, I 100% agree. It's the worst, right? In the last year, I mean, who would have ever thought that we'd be living in, what was it, 1984? Was that the movie?
Yes. George Orwell. Right? Yeah.
And George Orwell. And if you go look through a lot of the stories, the books, the movies, they predicted what's happening today. So there's that side of it, which it looks like a lot of fear. And then if you look on the other side of the fence, right, or the other side of what some people refer to as the other side of the veil, we're partying on this side. We're so excited because the veil is lifting. And the people who are listening to the narrative, there's more and more of those individuals who are questioning, who are feeling, doesn't make sense anymore.
Right. And
so from the spiritual side, there are more people that are very, very excited about what's coming, and the thinning of the veil and the access to creator. And on that side, there isn't the fear. And then there's the tweeners. I like to call them the tweeners. You kind of think of it like a bridge, right? You have one side that's rooted in the third dimension. You have the other side that's rooted in the fifth. And then you have some of those brave souls that already starting to walk over the bridge. And so they may have touched upon one side, but they still have, one leg over here and maybe a finger over there. And so they're bouncing back and forth, right? Bouncing back and forth. And so for them, the fear can be very real. In fact, I like to call it them. They are fighting harder than ever because they know that the ascension is happening. I mean, Mother Gaia is not waiting for anybody. So time is speeding up, and the fear can be very real for those who don't have, I refer to the telecommunications. They have a dial-up. They don't have a big DS3 bandwidth connector to creator, because the more light and love that we hold, the less fear there is. So when we find ourselves, regardless of what dimension we're standing in, when we find ourselves in fear, it's because we've had that division. The veil is thick and we're separate, because we know that when we're not separate, when we're connected to creator, there is no dark, there is no fear, there is no crime. Those timelines don't exist. And that is what people are starting to wake up to. They maybe not know it yet, but in the back of their mind, or they feel, or they hear something like, yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense, And they start to question, and that's what we all need to do, is to start to question the fear. Where did the fear come from?
Absolutely. I agree. I think a lot of it is manufactured, and it's interesting because I have, personal relationships where there is a lot of it, and it's, there's certainly something to be said to live this earthly life in a prepared manner, but when they have us in fear, when we always feel this reactivity to whatever the news headline is of the day, regardless of who is saying it. I mean, it could be the mainstream media, or it could be the censored media, and there's fear mongering, I think, on both sides. But when they have us in fear, they have us in their grasp. They have us under control. They have basically controlled our mind with the fear.
Yes.
And it's really hard to disconnect from that when that's the way we've been conditioned, right?
Well, yes. And I always like to say it's really simple. It's just not easy. That's my motto. It's super simple, just not easy. And you can relate it to a lot of things. You can relate it to going on a diet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simple. We all know what we're supposed to do. We really do. And is it easy? Yes, for some. For most, no, it's not easy. But where do you start, right? You start one step at a time. Same thing, going to the gym, getting healthy. It's really about getting healthy. Body, mind, spirit, and emotion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? All of our bodies, our 4 bodies that we occupy, and taking a look at where we are on the health wheel, when it's a physical thing, it could be your diet, it could be going to the gym, right? How do you start? Go for a walk, right? How do you start? Turn off the phone for 1 hour, right? Turn the conversation to nature instead of the other ones that ignite the fear.
Right. Right.
What I always mess up that saying, wherever your focus goes, the energy goes.
Mm-hmm. Where focus goes, energy flows.
Thank you. And so instead of the time is now. Last year was 2020, right? So clear vision. This year is a time for disclosure, but we're also transferring into a time of creation, 5-year creation, numerology, 5-year creation. So why not put a little focus towards that which you desire, that which you'd like to create, that which you'd like to go towards, a little more time there every day. And just like a muscle, just like losing the fat, over time, it reduces and you start to shift, right? Learn a new language. Take one word a day, learn a new language, start to shift. you know,
Yeah.
because they feed on our fear. I mean, that's what they've done over, some of us say decades, they say thousands of years, is how they controlled us, is through fear.
Yeah.
That's what they feed
Eons.
on. Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
a long time. So
So I want to switch tracks, and it seems like it's unrelated, but I don't think it is. And that's the rise of the feminine. And I'm not talking about a feminism that emasculates men or that denies the masculine, but just this re-rise to our proper place in society where where the narratives no longer make us less than, they no longer make us inferior, they no longer make us the cause of all the sin in the world, et cetera, et cetera. How do you see this coming into play at this time? And is it related to the starseed and the light workers? Is this aligned?
it's all aligned. So think about the ascension. Really, what's happening is Earth, Mother Gaia, feminine, is saying no more. You know, we, the feminine side, and the feminine masculine is both of us. So we embody both, regardless if we incarnate as a male or a female. And unfortunately, what's happened over the last eons is that the feminine side has been, as you know, suppressed. That's a very kind word.
Yes.
Suppressed. And it's time now, as we move up in energy and lightness and ascension, that we connect in with the feminine, the mother energy. If you think about the mother energy, right? It's the healing, it's the nurturing, it's the helping the children to grow into the best that they can be, to experience everything, to go out and create. So we're moving from what was used to rule us, which was the mind and the ego, and we're going actually to the big mind, which is the heart.
Yeah.
That's really the place of creation, that we're connected with Creator. So yes, the rise of the divine feminine, the age of Aquarius, the ascension of Gaia, light workers coming together, because we're anchored in the heart vibration. And as we shine our light, it's a frequency. And what it does is it nurtures and it heals and it inspires and ignites that creativity that's within all of us, that's been so vastly produced. I mean, suppressed. If you think about it, even on the men who are masculine, right? They've been suppressed.
Yes.
If they had a little more balance with their feminine creative side, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would be flying to be their best self. So it's not just the female human in the feminine, it's the whole existence and whole of humanity to be able to integrate and balance. And the feminine needs to lead for a little while to get things in balance, because we've been so out of balance and being suppressed, right?
Right.
And
right.
the creation has been super limited. I mean, we have so many things on our planet, so many patterns, so many creations, so many healing that have been suppressed, and that's the divine feminine. It may have been created by a masculine human man, but it still is that creation, right? And the creation comes from the divine feminine side.
What do you mean
So
by
it's
that?
all
We've
good.
been
It's coming
created by
together.
the masculine.
Thank you for, so what I mean is, like, if you have inventions and things that we've had that may have been created by a male human. So Tesla embodied as a man, and he had an amazing creation, right? Of being able to heal the planet, free energy. That's a feminine type of thing. The actual creation may have been masculine, you know, in the outer looking, but the part of healing the planet, that comes from the divine feminine.
Okay.
The healing and the loving and the nurturing part of it.
Right. Well,
and together, the balance of the two right? Is what expands things. And we have been put in a box, we've been controlled through fear to not create, to not have our divine gifts.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to understand with that, I mean, I think your point is very poignant in the idea that this man came up with a creation, which, I mean, I think creation is always masculine and feminine, depending on how it is manifesting and what the actual process is. It's like the idea of a plant in bloom or what have you. But I guess what I'm hoping for now isn't for more Teslas, although I'm not opposed to it. I'm looking for more women's voices. I'm looking for more of the women to be able to stand in the spotlight with their creative gifts, both masculine and feminine, so that the world recognizes that it is both and that it's not just, I mean, unfortunately, Tesla was not very well respected in his day. And maybe there was some undercurrent of resistance to the way he brought forth that creation, because it seemed that the powers that were at the time went with Edison, who was probably more cooperative, right, to whatever the social agenda was. And so
Yes.
he was basically the one that was put on the pedestal, while either Tesla's ideas were completely disregarded or they were co-opted. But I am really looking for, and I don't have anything against the masculine. I have male guests on my show, although I tend toward the female. But I really am looking forward to this idea of women standing in their power. I love, though, that you said that men have been equally suppressed, in that they haven't been able to embody their feminine nature.
It's the part of their feminine that also has been suppressed.
Exactly.
And so, this new age, the age of Aquarius, the ascension of Mother Gaia, right? The rise of the divine feminine. And you will see more women. I mean, a personal experience. I am heading up a global shift, a global change in Gaia, Mother Earth. And if you were to look at my human resume, you would wonder, how did she come to this place? But if you were to look at my galactic resume, it would be a totally different story. And so I think this is a testament of women and bringing in the femininity and rising to places of a power within the globe, within the inhabitants of Gaia, that we are stepping out. And I would like to link that back to, it's safe to come out.
Yeah.
It's safe. It's time to heal from all the rejection. It's time to heal from the times that you've been tortured and killed and maimed, so that you can shine your light, and that we as the divine feminine can lead the way, because we are the new leaders, not just of the United States, but we are the new global leaders. And there are those, I'm meeting them every day throughout the globe, that just by them connecting with me, they're so excited that they feel safe now. They feel safe to be able to come out and shine their light.
Yeah,
so
it's exciting, but I can't say that I still don't have some trepidation of my own, even as I'm stepping into who I believe I am. Whether I believe I'm a light worker. I don't know if I'm a starseed or not. I don't know a lot about Lemuria and Atlantis, although I felt like I journeyed to Atlantis a couple of weeks ago, for whatever that's worth. But there is still this, I guess, this split, right, in my own mind and my own sense of being, in being able to come forth. I think my podcast is probably where I do that best, because I'm inviting guests on who can speak for some of the things that I don't know about, but that I want to explore. I want to say, I want to question. I want other people to question, not in a way that is, oh really, but or in that cognitive bias questioning that we but really kind of this open wonder. What if
Yes.
What if this is, there's something real to this. I love the idea of, speaking of creator, the way I was brought up, it was like creator of heaven and earth, and there was nothing else. I mean, they didn't really talk about planets, although, there's talk about angels coming to earth and mating with humans and all of these different interpretations, but we were fed those interpretations according to a certain doctrine or path that they wanted us to stay on. So there, like, still, I have a hard time processing all of it. And so what does it mean that it's safe to come out now? What does it mean? I mean, I don't think it means that we won't experience rejection or persecution or death, even still, perhaps. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but what does it mean to feel safe now as a light worker and a starseed?
So I'm going to speak from personal experience and from those that are my soul sisters around me, and that are experiencing what I'm experiencing. And that is that I know that in this life, at this time, that I'm divinely protected. Through past lives, and even in this current life, up until, let's just say 5 years ago, I've been spiritually attacked on many, many, many occasions. And I've had to go into hiding. What I now know, because I received divine communication, and that is I'm now protected. And so as I go along and make associations with others that are part of the consciousness team, they also are divinely protected. And just like any type of protection, doesn't mean you walk down a street where there's a bunch of thugs on the street, with their knives and their chains. We have to be conscious in how we work through this time frame, this dimension. And we have a team. I have a team. I have a team that I can call on at any moment, at any time. And my personal experience is that I do some very outwardly things, but I rarely ever experience fear in my life anymore. It's just gone. I just know, which is my gift, I just know that I'm protected. So I'm able to step into scenarios that I would not have done in the past, for fear that I would have been targeted and taken out physically, like physically taken out of this earth.
Right.
So I received a message that I can come out. It's safe. And so with that, I do work globally, planet-wise, to help others know that. So that was remote energetics. And then in this current process that I'm doing, I'm also working with others, and they sometimes will reach out to me, and I will send my team. And part of that, though, is teaching them to do it for themselves. So for them to be able to utilize their spiritual muscles, right? And have their own personal knowing or feeling or seeing or hearing, whatever their gift is, so that they have a higher connection with their higher self, with their guides or angels, and with Creator. And as one experiences that, similar to a spiritual muscle, right? The fear goes away. The chatter. You remember we were talking just about the programming that we've received?
Yeah.
That goes away. You get clear, you get mental clarity. I mean, oh my gosh, my mind used to be the worst, the absolute worst chatterbox. It would never shut up. I think it had 2 or 3 conversations at one time. It was so bad. And I don't have that anymore. It's just clear. I just receive messages, and a very, very left brain logical person, now thinking with their heart, and it's amazing. And when that happens, the fear goes away. The fear just goes away.
Did you know that in the human body, the heart is actually formed first and then the brain after that?
I learned that a little while ago.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that, that actually one of the first cells is a Merkaba, which
Oh,
is amazing.
wow.
Most
Yeah.
people don't know that. That's on the spiritual side. If they, and they have scientific proof of that, which I think is so awesome. I love the
Yeah.
fact that science and spirituality that they're coming closer and closer together. It's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely. I think that, for those that are willing to question, those are willing to open their eyes or seeing that. And I think that's what excites me. And I think that's why I'm willing to have these conversations, because as much as there is that I still don't understand and that I haven't experienced for myself yet, I absolutely believe that you can't really know, or you don't actually have the wisdom until you do experience it. People can feed you knowledge, or data until the cows come home. But until you can actually process it through your own body, mind, heart, soul, that it's not wisdom. It's not, it becomes a very shaky platform, because you're really not standing on your own wisdom. You're standing on someone else's, which can be yanked out from under you at any time. And that's actually, maybe that's why people do go into the dark night of the soul, because they don't have that. And really, with old soul archaeology, it is about coming back to inner wisdom, and almost like a brick at a time, replacing that faulty foundation with something that's actually real. So I'm going to ask you one more question. We're running out of time, but before I do that, I want to ask where people can find you.
Thank you for asking. So they can come to my website, which is ChristinaCowherd.com. They can also find me on Facebook at Christina Cowherd Coach. And then for those who are Starseeds and would like to learn more about being a Starseed, they can also click on the group, which is within my Facebook page, my professional page. They can find my Starseed group.
Fabulous.
So those are great ways.
Yeah, the Starseed group, is that for people who know they're Starseeds, or people who might suspect that they are Starseeds, or both?
It's for both. There's
Okay.
I'm starting a series of, it's actually going to be kind of fun, which is, do you look up at the stars and have this feeling that you're missing it from home? You might be a starseed. So I'm going to do a series of different things that relate to people who are starseeds, that they have little idiosyncrasies about themselves that they know that just nobody else does, or nobody else in their family does, let's say, or their coworkers do. And they've always wondered, and kind of what you were saying earlier. I love to dream and say, what if? Mm-hmm. What if we were in a movie? What if we were in a matrix? What if? And so there's aspects of Starseeds, which I'll be posting out to trigger people who don't yet know they're a Starseed. And then they can come and explore.
Right.
Yeah.
So my last question for you, Christina, is what is your definition of an old soul?
So my definition of an old soul is somebody who's lived multiple lives, and they've incarnated into these human vessels, which are absolutely fabulous. And they have inner knowing. They know things, they feel things, they sense things that are beyond their human years. Like myself when I was 5, some children when they're 12, some people when they're 40, all of a sudden they know or sense or feel things that they've never had in their existence. Those are old souls.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again for being a guest, for sojourning with me today. I hope you will come back. I think this conversation can go for a while, and it's fascinating. There's so much I have to learn. I know that. So again, thank you for being my guest today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'll look forward to coming back, because yes, it goes very deep and very wide. So thank you again. Love and light blessings.